This Dicebreaker video is sponsored by Wild Bills. Ditch the manufactured flavors. Your taste buds deserve better. Treat yourself to Wild Bill's premium handcrafted soda pop. Mouth-watering beverages that allow you to escape to the most interesting places imaginable. Cheers to refusing the drink from the mainstream. Cheers to kick-ass canned. Cheers to being veteran-owned and operated. At Wild Bills, flavor isn't everything. It's the only thing. Use discount code CHEERS15 for 15% off your first order.
Hello and welcome back to Dicebreaker, where today we're doing a Today We Played.
Today, Liv.
Today!
Definitely today.
Today!
Definitely we played something today.
Yep,
It
today.
wouldn't fit the YouTube title, that's why it's Today We Played.
No, exactly, and it's no one can prove us wrong. But yeah, I'm joined by the wonderful Matt Jarvis and the wonderful Alex Meehan. Hi, folks.
Hello, we're at Essen.
Yeah.
Essen Spiel 2021. Yay.
Yay!
It's a good show.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. This is day 2, we should say. We're filming this on day 2. You're probably watching this not on day 2.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Full disclosure.
Yeah. So we don't. No one's lying here.
No one's lying. Absolutely not. We would never.
No.
But yeah, today we are discussing Far Cry Beyond, which is a game we played at Essen yesterday. But today we played.
Yesterday we played.
Yesterday we played.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. All right, so let's kick it off. What do we think, gang? Who wants to go first and share their thoughts?
Yeah. Well, Matt Jarvis is pretty savage, so.
Liv, I have some thoughts. I'd like to share them. First of all, let me hit you with this singer. It should be called Far Cry Beyond Boring. So for those who don't know, Far Cry Beyond is an upcoming adaptation of the video game series, which I've played. Have either of you played the video game series?
No, I'm aware of it.
Okay, so we got a good span of like have played, haven't played, like. But as someone who has played the series, I'll get onto that in a moment. But basically, it adapts the series, but it doesn't adapt a particular game. So it's not based on Far Cry 3 or 4, Blood Dragon, anything like that. It's a standalone game. There are characters who might make cameos from some of the video games. So they mentioned Herc, who appears in several of the Far Cry video games. Herc appears here as a child. We didn't see Herc ourselves, but apparently Herc is in there as a child.
No, we did.
That
We
was-
saw no children.
That was presented as some kind of selling point, which was immediately kind of okay. They described it as a legacy game, so it's based around a campaign.
I would like to say I think a lot of publishers banned about the term legacy quite a lot, when in my mind a legacy game should be one that you can permanently alter.
Yeah, so they said there's envelopes.
Yes.
So tick that legacy game
Okay.
thing. You open the envelopes and you get more cards, and you add
Yeah.
those to the decks.
But-
And I think they said there might be stickers,
Yeah, they
but
were
they didn't
very-
really go into...
Vague.
Oh, yeah, they were saying that it's not you tear up a thing and it's permanently destroyed. You put stickers on it instead.
Okay.
in order
I
to-
suppose that counts, but
Yeah.
like I feel like a lot of publishers use the term legacy just so they can use the term legacy because it's become essentially a buzzword.
Yeah.
When I feel like if you've not committed to the actual like a lot of people say, oh, Gloomhaven is a legacy game. It's like, no, it's not. I feel like the term has kind of
Just a big game.
become watered
Yeah,
down.
it's kind of evolved into like campaign
Yeah,
games.
it's a
like,
campaign
with some
game,
kind of
yeah.
ongoing progression. So we have that here. You will play about 10 scenarios, I think they said, makes up a campaign. We played we played one scenario and they started to set up the other one, and then we had a different appointment. So we saw one full scenario, which took
part
us
of
about
this-
45 minutes, half an hour, 45
Yeah,
minutes, something like that.
we saw one full scenario, and then Liv and I saw part of the next one.
Yes, we did.
But
yeah, because you had to hurry off.
Yeah,
But
Matt Jarvis, busy man,
Busy bee,
busy
yes.
businessman. Matt Jarvis
Yeah.
had to rush off, but I think we were kind of like partly way through the second, scenario. We were like, I think this is everything.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be. The first scenario we did was basically it was the tutorial level. Let's be
Yeah.
fair. So it was like these are how people fight against you. It's how you fight against other people.
Yeah. So
This is loot you can pick up.
yeah. So let's lay down the kind of
break it down.
Yeah, let's break it down now. I wish I could turn my chair around and
Oh yeah,
and
sit
say,
astride. Yeah.
hey, like Captain America style. But and anyway, so in this game, and when we were hearing this synopsis, we were a little bit like, wait, what? Okay. You are playing as stunt actors in a version of the 1980s. And now you're being hired to do investigative work.
The stunt people have been hired because of their unique set of skills, a la Taken, to join an agency that is taking down.
Doing something?
They're doing something. They are trying. There's some kind of
Cold War stuff is going on. And yeah, some of the enemy we're fighting against, some of the kind of artwork around them was very Soviet inspired.
Yeah, it's very much that thing of like, just like very broad brush of like, I don't know, Soviets. And you're meant to just kind of go, okay.
I don't know why publishers are making games about like Soviet.
I think here it's trying to lean into that 80s feeling of like, but it just came across as a bit like,
So here's the most like baffling thing about the experience of playing Far Cry Beyond is the fact that you sit down and there's the logo on it, it's Far Cry Beyond, but beyond that point, thank you, it's just like, how is this in any remotely, way a Far Cry game? Because even though obviously I've not played the video games, I've got a vague idea of what you do in them. And again, like trying to adapt a video game into a board game is never going to be one for one because they're just entirely different mediums of entertainment. But I just saw no parallels there to the video games.
Yeah, it was odd because in the Far Cry video games, arguably the least interesting part of those games is shooting people. Like the fun parts of those video games are running around, like chasing, like driving a jeep around, or flying off a cliff in a wingsuit.
It's this big open world. It's how you interact with that environment you're in. And I think the most we had of that was we could destroy some petrol cans. Yeah. And they could blow up.
Yeah, I don't know if it was going to, like, to be fair, we haven't seen all of the rooms.
Yeah, we only
haven't
saw
seen
a
all
bit
the scenarios
of the game.
But what we were able to interact with was, like, blowing up, the petrol stands, like you said, and we could, my character in particular, each character has, like, a special, like, set of, like, moves. Moves.
They have a gameplay style.
Yeah.
So
mine was like agility, and so she could just like hop over like bits of cover which you can hide behind to have to roll an additional dice if you want to attack somebody or be attacked against rather. But yeah, so that was mostly the interaction.
It's like our different characters kind of had different approaches to combat, and we had these abilities that we could activate when we wanted to. Yes.
My character's power was
dog.
Here's a dog. So I had two characters to control, and the dog Rosie could do either bark, loud bark, not just your normal bark. I didn't use that because it didn't seem very. It just let me move an enemy 4 spaces, I think. But I had to choose between that or melee attack, which seemed a lot more useful when we were being attacked. I managed to biff the roll on almost all of those attacks. So the dog just kind of milled about for a bit, playing catch or something.
Yeah, and my character was like a tank. So it was all about up-close combat and kind of taking hits from my teammates and things. But again, like all of these aspects, in Far Cry, you don't have like classes. Like, and even though technically our characters didn't have classes, they felt like they probably should. And again, that's kind of a baffling element of this being a Far Cry game in the sense that, again, that's not taken from the video games. The setting, the closest thing it is to is maybe Far Cry Blood Dragon, but even then, that's like...
Yeah, which was a game that got off on being really wild.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like neon-soaked and like there were T-Rexes in that game. It's the most kind of out there of the Far Cry games. And those are games that tend to be a bit... like, look at all this kind of weird stuff going on anyway.
Yeah.
And this just felt very bland.
Yeah, there were dogs There were attack dogs.
There were attack dogs that you had to fight, and that is also one of my main the worst things about this game. You have to fight dogs.
Yeah, you have to kill the dogs.
You have to fight the doggos.
And they're wearing like they're wearing like leather gear.
Yeah, no,
it's very odd.
I know what you wanted to say, and I agree.
And they had like little hats on and stuff. And then whereas like the soldiers we were fighting were very generic soldiers.
Yeah.
And at one point, do you remember at the end, the person showing us the game was like, "Oh, there's this monster thing."
Yeah.
There was a monster thing we could fight if we got to, and I'm like, "Where's this come from?"
Like an
Maybe that's
amalgamation guy.
Yeah, maybe that's the quote wacky element of it. Essentially, the first scenario we played, we were in a shop and we were just shooting people.
Yep.
And that was fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
And then the next scenario was we walked outside of the shop.
And there was an ambush.
And there was an ambush with lots of enemies out there. But
And the big boss.
And there was a big mini boss who could buff the like little minions.
Yeah, so you had to like strategically try to take the big
The
boss
boss
out.
down.
And if you got him down to a certain amount of hit points, then something else happens.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
like another-
So the enemies in this game have like certain behaviors that they'll do. Depending on like a card that dictates like their AI. So on their turn they'll do things like go up to a person and attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or shoot.
Shoot or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Or if you're a dog, you bite.
yeah. So like enemy AI sounds really interesting and that's cool. And like other board games have done something similar, like the Monster Hunter board game
Yes.
does a really good job of that.
Camp Grizzly also does that.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, the difference here is that this isn't this is not very good because essentially the enemies, the problem is that the AI just does the same thing pretty much all the time. The mini bosses will react to certain events like having their health taken down, and that did happen in our game. And essentially all it did was the mini boss said to the minions,
Everyone attack, yeah.
So it was the case of fundamentally this is a good idea, but it didn't really go into enough depth for it to be very fun or exciting or beyond what we were already doing on dealing with, which was just enemy do a shoot.
What you do.
Yeah, that's what you do. So I feel like a lot of it was some of these ideas that you've seen in other board games. You're like, oh, this is a cool thing. There's a board that you can move around, but there are environmental things blocking us, or like things we can interact with on the board, or loot we can pick up and stuff like that. We've seen a lot of these things in other board games, but the problem is that they were sort of just there in a very shallow way. And they were there wasn't enough there for it to really be like, this is fun, engaging, exciting, unexpected. It was very much like, okay, that's a thing.
Any thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is, so you had reactions and stunts. So I think stunts were unique to your character.
Abilities, yeah.
Yeah, so they were kind of like unique abilities, and reactions you would draw at the end of each scenario.
Yeah.
And then you would be able to use them once during that scenario.
Yeah.
And they would be things like, as they sound, reacting to enemies, but it was kind of just like...
They're very basic things.
Yeah, like I was able to reload my gun so I could shoot twice, and it was like...
an extra space. Like...
Improve your dice was also one.
Yeah, so
that was probably one of the most useful ones.
Yeah,
I guess.
So your weaponry that you have will have different ranges, but also will have different dice tied to them, and each type of dice will have a certain level of probability, and there'll be dice that are better than others, and you have to roll the dice to hit the enemy. Again, something we've seen in many, many other games.
Yeah, they were all D6, and I feel like it was a kind of missed opportunity to have different
types of dice, rather than
we're using prototype dice, so they had kind of blank stickers
to indicate.
So I think one
misses.
of them had. Yeah, so the hardest difficulty was it only had one success, down to 5 out of 6 for the best die. But it was just kind of like, it just felt a bit boring to be like, oh, well, I guess I've upgraded this die, but it's still just a D6. I'm still just rolling the same thing, and it's a single die. There's no kind of fun of getting extra dice and a better chance.
Yeah, it was just very even like the miniatures, they looked fine, but they didn't look very like the enemy miniatures, particularly apart from the weird dogs. All the enemy miniatures were just like, here is a soldier.
Yeah, and because none of the characters, I guess, other than Child Herc, which we didn't see,
No.
they're not characters from the game.
No.
So there's no kind of here's...
No.
I mean, none of those characters are particularly memorable.
No. The enemies... The thing is, though, the villains and the things that... The characters that people most remember from Far Cry. So, like, if Vaas had turned up from Far Cry 3, or... Is it Pangin?
Jacob something? There's Jacob something in the most recent... Not the most recent one, 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, the villains tend to be
there was the villain, like the villain from Far Cry 4 with the blonde hair. I can't remember his name, but like those are the... I've not played Far Cry, but I vaguely know what he looks like. Like those characters, no one cares about the main characters. Like everyone remembers the villains. Like, but they weren't in there, and because it wasn't based on any particular Far Cry game, there's no iconography for them to use. Like, how is this, like, gameplay wise, nothing like Far Cry.
Yeah.
Artwork wise, nothing like Far Cry. Like, setting wise, not really.
Why is this Far Cry?
Yeah. It's literally like, and the thing is, it's such a shame because we've seen recently a lot of really good licensed board games that you know, that they're not just there to emulate. This is exactly how the video game works. Like, they understand that board games are fundamentally different.
Yeah.
But you can still evoke a similar feeling through the board game. So, like, again, mentioning the Monster Hunter board game, we all really liked that game from what we played with it. We did play, like, an online preview.
Also, it was a we did a sponsored
It was a
Let's Play as well,
sponsored
but even
game.
outside of
Yeah,
that,
it was...
like, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed that game and how much it felt like the video game.
Yeah,
I think that's the key thing here, like you say. Like, it's just it doesn't feel like Far Cry at all. It's just like
and then
any old dungeon crawlery thing.
That Monster Hunter game wasn't based on any particular entry in the series, but
Based on Monster Hunter World.
It's based on Monster Hunter World. But like, I've not played Monster Hunter World. So, but I knew about the different monsters and whatever, and like it had the different kind of class, only the weapons that people would use and stuff like that. So, and then also the way it played, from what I understand about Monster Hunter, felt like Monster Hunter. Whereas this game is like, again, I've not played Far Cry, but I know generally what you do in Far Cry, and it just felt nothing. Yeah. Like I think we were saying in the podcast, there are games that do kind of similar things to what the Far Cry video games do, where they're like, here is this environment you can explore. You have to craft things, for example, which you do in Far Cry. You interact with the environment. You have different like little objectives you can do. I don't know why they didn't do that.
There were several different directions they could have taken in, and I think I also mentioned in the podcast that it felt very much to me like D&D 5e combat, just from the fact that, you know, there were even actual reactions you could take at any time, and like use loot and like upgrade your weapons, and like it just kind of felt similar for me, because it was just basically like, here's a weapon you can use to attack, but you haven't got the additional, like, oh, I've been role-playing as this character, and I feel for them.
Yeah, the characters were just
Yeah.
Like, they clearly had some ideas for, you know, these different tropes. So, like, the big muscular woman, and then the guy with dog. But it was not much more beyond that. I mean, the closest thing I would say is like a dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
But there are some really good dungeon crawlers out there. This is not one of them. Like, maybe they made it dungeon crawler because dungeon crawlers are especially popular right now. But it is just kind of baffling that they've had this license and this is what they've decided to do with it. And it's like, I'm not sure it's going to satisfy Far Cry fans. It doesn't feel like it satisfied board game fans. It's just kind of like, who is this for? Like,
something I will add as well is that the legacy aspect that we didn't take part in.
we didn't
was,
see.
Was like apparently you can to decide which scenario you're going into next, you are able to like decide whether somebody lives or dies, or like decide to save somebody or kill somebody.
Yeah, which potentially is the most Far Cry thing about it, because I know that you can make certain story decisions.
Yeah, but I think even if that was in there, at least in the scenarios we saw, there was just none of that during the actual gameplay.
Yeah.
It was like the most you could do is you could pick up like loot tokens.
Yeah.
It would be, do you want an offensive weapon or a defensive weapon?
Yeah.
And it was like, even then, we didn't really see anything particularly wild. It was just like, I don't know.
Also have a qualm with like the offensive and defensive, because I picked like a defensive one, and it was like, this is some poison. I was like, what do you mean it's poison? It's defensive.
Yeah, that was a very odd description.
I got an American flag.
Yeah.
And it just let me like upgrade my die again. It was just like, okay, that's like it's not just like another gun, but it was just a miniature American flag, and it just meant I could shoot slightly better.
Yeah, I
but
wonder
that's
if
the boring bit of the game anyway.
I wonder if they were trying to lean into like, this is US versus Russia, and like But again, it was like there wasn't enough of that.
Yeah,
to really
it just
make
lacked. Like Far Cry has flavor. If anything, Far Cry has too much flavor sometimes.
Yeah.
It's definitely a series of style over substance.
Yeah, but the flavor
problem
for
is
this
here,
was
there's no style and no substance.
No, it was like a I'm trying to think, like a supermarket brand bag of crisps. Level of flavour. Like there was a vague taste of ready salted there.
Yeah, it was like,
but
it was potato where they sprinkled on a little bit of something.
Yeah, a little bit of something.
A little bit of something,
and you're just like, oh, okay, well, that's completely unremarkable, and I will forget this in the space of a few days. So all in all, I mean, I wasn't hugely hyped. I know quite a few people were, because Far Cry is a popular series. It was very disappointing.
Yeah, I think as a fan, that series has a lot of issues, and often it's to do with storytelling.
But boring is not one of them.
I think that's the thing. It's like normally the problem with Far Cry is how it handles its storytelling, how it handles its settings, how it tries to handle the apparently non-politics, all of that. But here, there's not even any of that. There's not even a snifter of that. If anything, it's just another bland Cold War kind of setting, which in itself is kind of a bit dull, but doesn't even. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't even feel like they're trying to go for the bits of Far Cry that. Yeah, like normally it's the gameplay that pulls those games through. It's like you can jump in a wingsuit, you can get up in a helicopter, you can fire rockets from outposts, you can sneak around and, with a bow and arrow and hunt a bear and then turn the bear into an arrow pouch. And then you got more arrows and you can fight a bigger bear and then you can skin a shark and then all of this. And here it's just like, oh no, there's some guys in the room, you can go shoot them if you want.
Yeah.
You've got a dog.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's the most exciting part of this is I can have a dog.
Yeah, again, it just baffles me. I don't know why they didn't just make it an open world thing where you have you control a different character and you can pick up some objectives and be like, go and fight this bear. Go and take down this outpost. Yeah, you can.
Outposts.
I know.
Outposts.
Yeah, they could literally have a point. Look, I'm going to design your game for you. Are you ready?
Oh, here we go.
Right, you're going to have an open world. You have different objectives. Different objectives will earn you points.
Right.
The aim of the game is to earn as many points as you can.
Yeah.
But you can decide how and where you get those points. Kind of like in Far Cry, where you can decide what you want to do when you want to do it. And then, I don't know, fling in various ideas, hunting animals, taking down bad guys, doing weird stunts, and then there you go. I've literally designed your game for you. Like, you can throw in some enemies from the various series in there. You can, throw in the people. All I hear about Far Cry is just you hunt animals and make them into things.
Basically, yeah.
So you could even have crafting in there and improve your arsenal, whatever.
Yeah, I guess the equivalent of crafting here was picking up the loot.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was just you pick it up and then you can use it.
Pick it up, you use it.
The general summary is.
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. Basically, a little underwhelmed, but as another kind
little.
of. Look, I'm trying to soften the blow. But yeah, as like a kind of caveat to that, like, we didn't play the entire thing, so
Maybe it gets
Maybe
more
the legacy
exciting.
elements save it, but if it would need to be a heck of a save, because if that's the bulk of that game, it was just really bored. Like, it was functional, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Functional cry.
Woo!
That's what we did after we played.
Wow.
Because we were at a function. I don't know. But yeah. So that is yesterday we played Far Cry Beyond.
Yeah.
If you want to read the article that's up on the site about it, you can do so. Written by Alex Meehan.
Yeah, that should be live by now.
Yeah,
should be.
Yeah, definitely by the time
So
this
it'll
goes
provide
up, right?
more details, and there's some pictures on there.
Yeah, it's over on dicebreaker.com.
Yes.
Yeah. You should go there to check things out anyway.
Yeah, we're covering the whole convention of Essen Spiel.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can find out more on there. News, features. We got it all.
Oh, you got it all over on dicebreaker.com. If you want to stick around and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, that's youtube.com/dicebreaker, you can feel free to do so. We're going to have more updates, more today we played on Essen and over the course of the weekend, but also in the future, just kind of like talking about the games that we have to go back to the UK and play. So, and we've got some interesting ones coming up, so stick around for that. Also, if you fancy it, you can become a Dicebreaker Plus member by just clicking that join button underneath. Just right by there. Down there somewhere.
Whoa!
So you can get a bunch of exclusives and like kind of stuff that we wouldn't normally put on the main channel, like like some fun videos. And also you can also check out our merch by looking at the link in the description. Yes, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a while since I've done this. Don't we all agree? Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. And as always, have a lovely day.
Bye.